The bright smile returned to Solomon's face, and all his human and elven friends were happy. But they were also a bit sad because they knew Solomon was going to leave Eldremoria. He wanted to go back to his own land to fight against Lucrezia and save his father from her bad magic. Solomon hugged his friends, and they all had tears in their eyes. He asked them to take care and keep Eldremoria safe and peaceful. He promised that he would come back to visit them if he could. Solomon and I said
goodbye
to our friends. We walked to the prison with Lucrezia's book. We needed the book to go back to Void Haven. At the prison, I asked Solomon how to use the book. He told me we should stand under the roof and read a sentence 5 times.
The magic door will open for those who are lost. The magic door will open for those who are lost.
We read the sentence together 5 times. Something magical happened. The roof opened, and we felt like we were being pulled by magic. Suddenly, we came back to the dark room again. I ran and shouted,
"Mom! Dad! Where are you?"
I looked for my parents inside the house, but it seemed empty. No one was there. I went out of the front door and gazed at the snow-covered towering mountains of Void Haven. I felt the harsh cold that the village was known for. I turned to Solomon and said,
"There's no one in the house. Where could my parents have gone?"
Solomon replied,
"Let me ask a neighbor here."
Then, an old lady walked by, and Solomon called,
"Excuse me, ma'am. We want to know where the residents of this house are. Do you know anything about them?"
The old lady said,
"No one lives here, dear. This house was left empty 20 years ago."
Solomon was surprised and said,
20 years?
The old lady continued,
"Yes. The last people who lived here were a man and his wife. They were new to Void Haven. Nobody could talk to them because they spoke a different language. The last time I saw them, they were searching for their little daughter who disappeared suddenly. We didn't understand their problem at first, but the man had a picture of his little daughter and looked everywhere in the village. He was really worried. They called her name Mira. But even after 4 years of looking, they didn't find her. They didn't get any news, so they left Void Haven."
Solomon asked,
"So where did they go? Do you know their current place?"
She answered,
"I don't know, dear. Like I said, their language was strange, and we couldn't talk to them."
He asked her about his father and his bad wife.
"Do you know about a man named George and his wife Lucrezia? They lived here too."
The old woman said,
"Yes, I know a little. My mom used to tell us about them when I was a kid. George lived here with his wife Lucrezia. They had a son named Tony. Lucrezia was an evil woman who used magic in this house to get rid of her husband and his son Tony. You see, Tony was not Lucrezia's son, he was George's son from his first wife who died after having Tony. At first, everyone thought she died giving birth. But when Tony grew up and disappeared suddenly, Lucrezia told George she killed his first wife and caused Tony to vanish. What shocked the village was that Lucrezia was not human, she was a wicked demon like vampires. She had a heart as dark as night, no mercy at all. When George asked why she did all that to his family, she said their blood was good for demons. So, she killed George's first wife and drank her blood. Eventually, she killed George and drank his blood too. We don't know what happened to the boy Tony.
Solomon sat down, crying because of the old woman's words. I and the old woman asked, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Solomon couldn't talk, wiping his tears. After a bit, he asked again,
"Where is Lucrezia now?"
She said,
She disappeared, no one knows.
She asked him,
Why are you crying, dear? Do you know these people?
"Yes, ma'am, I'm their son Tony."
The old woman was surprised.
No way, this happened before I was born. How can you be Tony, looking like a young man now?
It's Lucrezia's magic, but you won't understand it, ma'am. Thanks for your help.
The old woman left, amazed by Solomon's words. I couldn't calm down, so I asked Solomon to explain everything the old woman told him. He told me everything, and I was really surprised. But the really unbelievable thing was that 20 years had passed since I disappeared, and many years had gone by for Solomon and his family. I only knew I had spent a few months in Eldremoria, and Solomon had been there for 4 years. Still feeling sad about his parents, Solomon asked me,
"Do you have any idea where your parents might be now?"
I said,
I don't know where they went after giving up hope of finding me. Maybe they returned to our original village.
Solomon said,
"We will go to your village and look for your parents, or ask people there."
I asked,
And what about Lucrezia? Could she still be alive?
Solomon said,
"I don't know. According to the old woman, a lot of time has passed. Time might pass differently in our world, faster, while in Eldremoria, it's slower. But I hope Lucrezia is alive so I can get my revenge. But first, we need to find your parents. It's only been 20 years, we might find them in your village."
I asked Solomon,
Do you have 2 different names, Solomon? You said your name was Tony.
He said,
"My real name is Tony. My mom chose it before I was born, and when she died, my dad kept it as her wish. But when I came to Eldremoria and lived with the elves, they didn't know what to call me. So, they gave me the name Solomon, and I really like it."
I smiled a little and said,
Even though I got used to calling you Solomon, I'll call you Tony because we won't go back to Eldremoria.
He said,
"Who knows? Maybe we will."
We both smiled at the same time. Tony and I started a journey to my original village, Duskenbrook. Tony still held the Book of Lucrezia, along with some food and drinks he brought from Eldremoria. We traveled a long way, facing different weather conditions, until we got to Duskenbrook. The village looked so different from when I last saw it. Now it was green and filled with colorful flowers. As we got closer to my old house, we saw a woman sitting in front of the door. I ran to her, tears of joy on my face, and said,
Mom! I'm back!
She cried and hugged me, hugged her daughter who had been gone for 20 years. She called for my dad.
Serge, come quickly! Mira has returned.
And he came out and saw me, saw his long-lost daughter standing before him. He embraced me tightly, as if afraid to lose me again. My family, who had been sad for 20 years, became now joyful. My parents asked about Tony, who came with me to Duskenbrook. I told them he was the reason I came back. I shared my whole story, from the cold village of Voidhaven to the dark room, meeting Tony in another world, and returning by using the Book of Lucrezia. I also told them Tony's story of losing his parents because of the wicked sorceress Lucrezia. My father thanked Tony for helping me and expressed his sorrow for Tony's loss. They asked Tony to stay with us and become part of our family. After 2 years, Tony learned the language of Duskenbrook, and my family became his family too. Tony and I decided to get married, creating happiness to replace the difficult times we both went through. Tony said we should rest and enjoy our new moments with my family in our small house before we start our journeys to find our enemy, the one who took away our family's happiness for so long.
So, what do you conclude, sweetheart?
The prisoner Solomon, his real name is Tony. Is he my grandfather?
That's right, dear. Your grandfather is the same Tony who transformed into an orc, fought monsters and vampires, and eventually returned to being human. Then, he married your grandma Mira.
It's amazing, isn't it? Our own grandpa and grandma had such an incredible journey.
You come from a line of brave and extraordinary people, son.
Wow! What a great surprise! I never imagined my grandpa had such an exciting life.
Family stories can be full of surprises, can't they?
And it's pretty cool to know that we have a hero in the family.
I want to be brave like Grandpa Tony.
That's right, dear. We're all proud of you, no matter where life takes you.
Thanks, Mom, Dad, and Sis. I'm lucky to have such an awesome family.
And we're lucky to have you.
Our family stories continue with you now, little hero.
Yeah, maybe I'll have my own amazing story to tell one day.
I'm sure you will. Just remember, you're already a hero in our hearts.
Absolutely, kiddo. We're excited to see all the wonderful things you'll do.
Thanks, guys. I love our family stories.
And we love you, our brave little hero.